Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I want to give you an update on my favorite assault rifle loadouts for Battlefield 2042, cause it's been a while since I went through all of them for the last time, and a lot of attachments and weapon stats have changed since then. So let's have another look. I'll start with the M5A3 as usual. In my last setup video I used a more versatile loadout for this weapon, but by now I mostly play it with a complete close combat setup focused on fire rate and hipfire accuracy. So I went with the shortened barrel because of its higher rate of fire, the rattlesnake light grip for its better hipfire accuracy, and the close combat magazine for another increase in fire rate, a higher reload speed and a better recoil control. For the scope I went with Fusion Holo, but I used this on almost all of my weapons, so it's just one of my favorites in general. If you don't like the slight reduction in aim down sights accuracy on the rattlesnake grip, you can also go with the laser sight, but I couldn't recognize a massive disadvantage when aiming down sights with the grip, so I went with this one. Cause the laser always gives away your position, and that can be a bigger disadvantage, especially in darker environments. If you want to try a setup for more mid-range combat, I can recommend to use the Champion Muzzle Brake for less vertical recoil, the BCG Light Grip for better accuracy when aimed down sights, and the standard issue extended magazine for a bit more firepower and range compared to the close combat mag. But in most situations, the close combat setup I showed you before should work pretty well and should be versatile enough. In general, the M5A3 is still a very good and reliable weapon, and especially for new players, the best choice. Next up is the AK-24, and I gotta be honest, I was a bit shocked to see what happened to this weapon. I hadn't played it in a while cause I already have it on tier 1, so I focused on other weapons, but I can remember that I really liked it back then and that it wasn't so hard to play. But in the meanwhile, DICE has removed the single fire mode of the weapon, which makes it much harder to control, especially on long range, and it also seems like the recoil in general is much more than before, plus the damage model has changed a lot as well. Right now the weapon only has fully automatic and burst fire, but the burst fire mode doesn't make it any easier to handle. And when it comes to damage, it feels a bit like shooting marshmallows, especially on range. However, I still found a decent setup for it, or at least one that is okay for me, but just try it out and see if it works for you as well, especially when you're struggling with the AK. So besides the usual Fusion Holo optics, I went with the Champion Muzzle Brake to reduce at least a little bit of the strong vertical recoil, then with the Rattlesnake Light Grip to add a little more hipfire accuracy, cause otherwise you're really screwed in close combat, and the standard issue drum magazine for maximum ammo capacity even if it has a lower reload speed. To counter vehicles, I also have the armor-piercing rounds equipped in one of the other slots just in case I need it. But like I already said, don't expect too much from the AK at the moment. It seems like they did a bit too many changes to it with the last updates. But then again, this might be completely different in a few weeks or months, so I will keep you updated as usual. A weapon that I can highly recommend to play right now on the other hand, because it's really good, is the SFAR. The SFAR is also part of my personal top 5 at the moment, and I would say it's definitely the best assault rifle in the game right now. It has an amazing handling with a relatively low recoil and deals consistent damage on almost all ranges with a great accuracy. The additional underbarrel launchers might not make this weapon to one of the best looking ones, but definitely to one of the most versatile weapons for almost all ranges and situations. For my preferred loadout, I went with the Champion Muzzle Brake for even less vertical recoil, and the high power drum magazine for a higher effective range and maximum ammo capacity. And just like I did with the AK, I also take the armor-piercing bullets with me on the SFAR. For the underbarrel launchers, I went with the AP grenades in the first slot to have an easily accessible counter against vehicles and gadgets, and in the second slot I have the incendiary grenades equipped, cause these work very well against infantry and also to close doors or other paths around an objective for a while. For the scope, I also went with a Fusion Holo here, but the new Target T8 scope works pretty good as well. It's a 4.5 zoom scope with a canted iron sight that makes it very easy to switch sights for different ranges. The scope was just added with the last update, and you can simply unlock it by doing 50 kills with the SFAR while aiming down sights. And the last of the assault rifles is the AC-42, and this also got a few changes with the last updates, but unlike the AK, this weapon was changed for the better. But to be honest, there was also not much more room left to make it even worse. Cause earlier this year this weapon was nerfed to death and was almost completely useless. Now after a few updates, it's a very reliable weapon again that works pretty well on the range you would expect from an assault rifle. If you're not a fan of burst fire weapons, you can also use it in single fire. For my favorite loadout, I used the tactical compensator for an increased weapon accuracy, but on a slight increase of recoil, the rattlesnake light grip for a better hipfire accuracy, and the standard issue extended magazine for maximum ammo capacity. If you feel like the weapon is too hard to control or you have problems controlling the weapon recoil in general, you can also use the champion muzzle brake to reduce the vertical recoil a bit. And if you want a bit more accuracy when aiming down sights, especially for mid-range, you can also go with the BCG light grip instead of the rattlesnake. For the scope, I'm always switching between the Fusion Holo and the XO Smart, depending on the mode and the kind of combat. If it's more close range combat, I stick to the Fusion, but for all mid-range combat, I really like the XO Smart, cause it's a great scope with 2x zoom, a very clear side picture and less blurry background compared to the Ghost Hybrid, for example. What you can also do in the AC is go with one of the heavy suppressors and with the subsonic rounds. Then you will have the same kind of stealth hit marker that the BSV-M has as well. But for me personally, this combination has too little damage and range and feels too much like shooting marshmallows, so I can't really recommend it. But feel free to try it out and see if it works for you. And that's it for today. I'll do this kind of update on all of the other weapons as well, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss anything. And if you enjoyed this video, drop a like or a comment below, as this always helps a lot with the algorithm. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm the Catwoman, and you are awesome.